Amen. So, folks, we're going to be picking up, as I said, in 1 Kings chapter 19. So let's read the first 10 verses here. It says that Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. And just as a quick recap, remember on Mount Carmel, he had a showdown with the God of Israel, the true God, and Baal. And without going into that entire study, the Lord showed up in a powerful way, and they ended up killing the prophets of Baal, 450 of them. So Ahab, the king, goes home to his wife, tells her how it went, how all that Elijah had done, and how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. And Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time." So tomorrow, 24 hours from now, you're going to be a dead man. And so in verse 3, when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself, in verse 4, went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die, and said, "It's enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Then as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Arise and eat." Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake of bread on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank, and he laid down again. And the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." So he arose, ate, and drank, and he went in the strength of the food for 40 days. Amazing. And 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he went into a cave, and he spent the night in that place. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And so he said, "I've been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenants and torn down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life." Now, as we ended last week in considering the great thing that Elijah had done and the powerful man, like a lion he was, amongst all of those thousands of people and all of those hundreds of prophets, it's almost hard at the end of the study last week to tell you and I the very truth that Elijah's a man just like the rest of us. And that the great miracles and amazing things he's done, it's easy for us to look at that and say, "There's no way I could ever do something like that." But then you read this chapter, and can't you say that you could do something like this? It's really easy to look at chapter 19 and say, "Whoa, oh yeah, I can relate to Elijah." But not so much chapter 18. And I just want to point out, as hard as it is to exhort us last week, that Elijah is no different than us in any way. It's harder to imagine in chapter 18, but it's so much a reality as it is in chapter 19. And so these are the things we really need to look at tonight. And so let me start with this. Something I've pointed out in Israel, been blessed to do it. When we go to Mount Carmel, I've actually done an entire study, not about Mount Carmel at all, but I've turned to chapter 19 instead. Because it starts on Mount Carmel, but where it goes from there is interesting. And here's the reality. It's common for people in general to want to quit their jobs on Mondays, which I don't think is that hard for people to imagine, right? But what's even more staggering and troubling and real, though, is that pastors often want to quit on Monday morning. Because Sundays are usually like the big God day, you know what I mean? We all show up to church and we're smiling and this whole thing. But often a pastor, even if it's a great Sunday, will want to go home, and then Monday morning rolls around and they're thinking about a different job, a different vocation, a different location, something like that. But that often comes on Mondays. But that's not new, is what I'm pointing out. Elijah just had this massive victory on Mount Carmel. And you and I would be led to believe, he runs past the horses and chariots. We studied that last week. You think, "Oh man, this guy is on cloud 9. Where's it going to go from here?" Except for a massive drop and plummet. You would expect him to just live on that forever. But so is the spiritual journey we're all on, right? The highs and lows of life. The high moments, the amazing moments, followed usually by a low moment, no doubt. So, that being said, and established fairly well here in the text, He gets the news that Jezebel, the queen, wants him dead. And not just wants him dead, like severely motivated. I am going to find you and I am going to kill you. Now, what is amazing is that this guy stood up in front of thousands of people, hundreds of prophets that were hostile to him. But one woman has got his goat, as we say. One woman. I could say that it's amazing what women do to men, but that's not the point at all. But the thing I do want to say, and that is relevant, is more than, because it's unexplainable why this one person. In fact, the more we learn about Elijah, men will go to him. Captains will go with 50 men to Elijah and say, Elijah, you're going to come with me. And he says, I don't think so. And he calls fire down from heaven and kills them all. Second guy shows up, calls fire down from heaven, kills them all. When the guy's like really aggressive, like, you come down here, we're going to take you. Third guy comes and he's like, look, man, I'm just trying to do my job. I got a family, man. Please, just come with me. The king wants to see you. He's like, all right. You know, my point is that when Elijah is not feeling it, he'll just wipe out people with fire from heaven. But why not do that with this woman? Why not call fire down from heaven and smote her, as we say, right? As the Bible says. Why not do that? Well, because, friends, I think there's something bigger at play that we can relate to, and that's why we can read this passage and so connect with it. And it's the fact that no matter what we theorize, there is a true principle, no less. Some people say that because he's running ahead of Ahab. It's like he wants to be the one to see Jezebel's reaction. There's got to be some level of excitement for him to say, the king and queen are repentant. Can you imagine? These evil, godless sinners, man, that have been leading the nation. And in his heart, he has this vision and this dream of something glorious. Because everyone else saw it, right? And they're like, God is real and Baal is false. And now he expects the king and queen to do the same thing, no doubt. But whether it's that or something else, we do know this. There is some level of expectation that he has that does not become realized. And this is what's important for you and I tonight. That expectations were not realized. And this led him into such a slump, he wished for death. So the first thing is this. You've heard me say it before. I believe it. I didn't read it out of a book. I've just seen it in my own life 1,000 times over. Expectations kill relationships, right? And you know that in your own life. I don't need to badger you on that. You just know the truth of it. You've been coming a while. You've probably heard me say that a few times. Expectations kill relationships. When you start expecting things and they do or don't happen, whatever that might be, they kill your relationships. But I also have written down here tonight, expectations are the death of dreams. Your expectations will kill your dreams, ultimately. And here's why. Because, Chuck Smith wisely once said, reality never lives up to fantasy. Reality never lives up to fantasy. So your fantasy world that you live in, that I live in at times, if we're not careful, we go wild with the expectations and the fantasies in our minds of the things that people will do, the things that people say, the way things in life are going to go. And that doesn't happen to us. We become really angry and bitter because reality never lives up to the fantasy. You ever notice how we fantasize the greatest possible outcome? Have you ever noticed that? You don't fantasize about things falling apart like they often do you? Like, oh man, I can just see it now. My whole life's going to come crumbling down when I turn 40. Like, you don't think like that. You're like, no, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to own everything. You're like, well, isn't it funny how we do that? We think of the future and ourselves in the best possible light, and it only sets us up for devastation. Expectations are not realized, and so what does he want to do? Just kill me now, Lord. That's some sick, twisted thinking right there. It's enough, Lord. Just take my life. I've done enough. I've had enough. It's enough. Take my life. Well, something very important, because if we're tracking and if you're truly with me right now and I'm feeling it, I'm there. I'm actually putting myself there. I want to be there and really learn from this lesson from Elijah. Not just his Mount Carmel moments, but these moments as well. If you're really there, then let's take a practical note of what God prescribes for him. Watch this. Watch this. He falls asleep because, this is a key thing we need to take note of, he is exhausted. He's exhausted. And he falls asleep. Angel wakes him up, he eats food, and then he falls back asleep. Angel wakes him up, and he eats food again. So he needs sleep and food. And in the wise words of Gary Hamrick, he said, we are more prone to discouragement when we are exhausted. So get some rest and eat good food. Right? I want to take that a step further because that's so obvious in a way, but it's really not in another. We are prone to discouragement when we are exhausted. We're prone to discouragement when we're exhausted. So get some sleep and eat some good food, right? What he finally does after all of that hubbub and going is he slows down and he gets some rest, some much needed rest. Now tonight, as we study this whole passage, I promise you there will be an incredible balance that we see in all this. But please, 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 take note that sometimes the cure, the remedy is rest and a good diet. So, you've heard me say things like, we are over-medicated in today's society, right? And I think I always usually get a big, hey man, we're over-medicated. Well, here's a few things. We are over-diagnosed and we are over-prescribed in this nation. Now, I am not someone who is like an anti-med, anti-vaxxer, okay? But I am so close to that it's hard to tell the difference sometimes, quite frankly. Does that make sense to you at all? I'm not like, there's no place for it, but I'm so close to that line that you would maybe lose respect for me, but I'm not there all the way. I suppose the fair thing to say and the right thing to say is there is a time and there is a place for medication. But let me say again, we are overdiagnosed and overprescribed in this nation. That's the problem. Now here's what I mean. I'm no doctor, and I'd have to almost put it out there so I don't get sued or something. It's just the ramblings of a preacher, man, okay? I'm not a doctor, disclaimer, don't try this at home or whatever I have to say. Here's the thing. So often, people go for the remedy, and they don't look at the most obvious thing, and they don't take real inventory and say, man, I'm just plumb exhausted. And let me just say what maybe a doctor might not say or what your friends or family might not say. You might just need better sleep, which means less screen time. I don't mean lay in your bed at 8 o'clock for 4 hours scrolling on your phone. I don't mean lay in bed more. I mean shut your phone off an hour before you go to bed because science tells us that blue screen does something to your sleep and it disturbs it. So if you put your phone away an hour before you go to bed, you might actually get a decent, restful night of sleep. But you just have habits that you formed that are completely unhealthy. And I'm saying that to myself as well. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious one. Are you getting a decent night's sleep? I understand there are people out there like my pastor that can live off 4 hours of sleep a night. It's amazing, honestly. But the average person needs 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night, right? 6 minimum, 8 more like it, okay? I know this is like fundamentally basic, but I'm going to say it for it to be said here. Because part of the depression, I'm all the only one. Okay, get some sleep, man. You sound like a crazy person, okay? You sound insane, go to bed. You might have to tell that to someone you love, right? Here's the idea. You've been up for 3 days straight. You're sounding like a weirdo because you don't sleep, right? Number one, get better sleep. Less screen time. A better diet. Imagine it. Imagine I don't need to go on and on and on as a pastor, but friends, the food that we eat in this country is garbage for us. Mo Hills has got a big amen for that one. Mo's crazy. He'll tell you even table salt's bad. I'm like, Mo, slow it down on the table salt, man. I need my table salt, But it's true, man. Listen, look at all the medical problems we're having, all the diseases now in our country. And follow the food change that we've had in the last 60 years in this country. It's not like an unknown source. It's well known. We know what we're eating is garbage. Look at a picture in 1920 in New York City, in modern day New York City, and you see the obesity is just rampant in our country. What changed? I don't know, the food source, the way that we eat, the whole food pyramid that we have now that's a lie, right? I mean, I could go on. Some of you are like, amen. Some of you are like, you're scaring me, right? I don't know where you fall in that. Here's the thing I'm saying. You might need better sleep. You might need to eat better food. You might need to eat less food, right? These are all things we don't think about, but we get so morbidly depressed, and we're like, what's going on? You ready for the third one? If I haven't already bothered you, myself enough, better sleep, better diet, and you have to actually sweat out all the toxins that you build up in your body. Just ask yourself, do you ever sweat? That's a natural thing. That part of the sweat is the bad stuff. You're getting it out of your body. But it's like, oh, it's hot. Just turn the fan on. No, don't turn the fan on. Work harder and sweat it out, man. Right? We just live in a country that is eating terrible food. We don't sleep at all, and we don't work at all. We've made everything so automatic, we don't have to physically do anything. So again, friends, listen, better sleep, better diet, and being physically active. 20 minutes a day minimum, sweating it out. You put those three things together. Before I want to see you or me on any medications, that's the first thing I want to see. Have we done those three basic things first? Have we gotten better sleep? Have we changed our diet so that it's healthy? And then thirdly, are we physically sweating out the toxins in our body? If we've done all three of those things, then let us take seriously some of the further concerns in our life. But here, let me give you an example. If we're not careful, we will pick and choose what part of that equation we want. If you want to be less depressed, you need all three of those things. It's not like, well, I'll do one of them because they're all kind of hard. Listen, if you are struggling with deep, dark depression and anxiety that cripples you, you have to do all three of those things consistently for a long time to get out of that hole that you're in. I'm saying that because I love you, and I'm saying that for my own benefit as well. But I think of going back to the COVID days. I remember this story because it was so close to me. It wasn't like some far-off story that I heard. Lady goes to the doctor and, tells the doctor whatever they tell the doctor, however things are going for her. And if we're not careful, we can tell the doctor our own version of things, right? Anyway, doctor says, with this COVID-19 running around, you got to stop going to public places. Oh, you go to church? Definitely have to stop going to church. Note taken. Do not go to church. Second note, you need to quit smoking. I'll scratch that. So, note taken on stop going to church. Quit smoking? I don't think so. Not in this lifetime. That's what I mean. All right, I'm cool with shutting my screen off and getting a little bit of better sleep, but I'm not going to go as far to change my diet and actually work out. I'm not going to do those things all at once. That's a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. But so is being overwhelmed with this kind of anxiety and depression that our man Elijah finds himself in. He has run himself ragged into the ground. And the Lord's first remedy is to give him some rest and to feed him some solid food. It goes on after this. We also see the Lord sustaining him for 40 days without food. So there's a whole other side of this equation. But I just want to point out the obvious thing in our nation today, and that's just that. Better diet, better food, better workout, right? Better exercise routine. And that's not just for aesthetics, by the way. It's not, I want to look good. No, you want to feel good. You want to be good, mentally and otherwise. Let's see. Yeah, you don't want to get me going on the exercise thing, by the way. Brother, I'm hammering down. I'm walking around my house once a day. I walk around the outside perimeter of my house. I'm really getting it done. My theory is you have got to soak a shirt and sweat every day. That's your goal. Before you do the rest of your work for the rest of the day, you soak a shirt and sweat. But that's why I said I'm going to stop there, okay? We're not going to go any further. That's when you know you did something. Okay, better sleep, better food. And the exercise is he's going to walk for hundreds of miles. I suppose the exercise is right there as well. But where does he go? I want to point this out to you in verse 8. He goes to Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, if I'm being fair and wholesome or holistic on the subject matter of the mountain of God, there are two places it's disputed as to which one of them is authentic. There is the common belief of Mount Sinai and what's called the Sinai Peninsula today, which is what we were looking at, the mountain of God. The mountain of God, by the way, is the identifying factor of the mountain where Moses goes and gets the Ten Commandments from, right? That mountain of God. So is that on the Sinai Peninsula, where it's commonly believed amongst theologians and Bible students? Or there's a place in Saudi Arabia called Jebel El-Oz, and it hasn't been up until very, very recently even allowed to be accessed by the public. I remember watching an old shaky video like 20 years ago of a guy that snuck in there and videoed it. And the government came for him because he was taking video, and then he took his camera and hid the tape in his pocket and let them have the camera thinking they got the evidence. And he brought it back, and it was groundbreaking to have this information 20 years ago. It was so cool. That's my kind of guy anyway. But my point is, Jebel El-Oz has so many identifying factors that fit the bill of the mountain of God, Mount Sinai, as we call it and know it, right? Where the Ten Commandments came down, all those kinds of, not to mention so many things like on the top of that mountain, there's char, lava residue, but yet there's been no volcanic activity in that region whatsoever, right? Other than we know that God came down with fire from heaven, right? And seared the mountain, the Bible says. So we could go on and on about how that mountain fits the bill. Another good identifying factor is in Saudi Arabia is the Bedouins, even to this very day, which Bedouins go back thousands of years living in tents in that region, okay? So imagine growing up and generation upon generation passing down certain information. And one of the things that the Bedouins has said about Jebel El-Oz is they call it Moses Mountain is what they call it. So that's an identifying factor. You don't have that with the Sinai Peninsula. You don't have that sort of history there. And then the fourth, or sort of one of the final thoughts is this. If you don't have to go there right now, but if you turn to Galatians 1:17 and Galatians 4:25, you could read some verses there. Galatians 1:17, Paul the Apostle alludes to a trip that he took to Arabia. We call it Saudi Arabia today. He was telling the Galatians, I went down to Arabia. Later in chapter 4 of Galatians, he mentions Mount Sinai, or the mountain of God, which is in Arabia. Which then, people love to say, well, the Sinai Peninsula could have been considered Arabia in ancient times. The only problem is it wasn't, right? So the point is, if you're asking me, in my limited understanding, I truly believe that Jebel El-Oz in Saudi Arabia is the mountain of God, and that's important because this is where Elijah goes, this is where Moses was, and this is where Paul the Apostle will go as well. Think about it. What an important mountain for someone to go on, where God came down and gave his law. How interesting, Moses goes there, Elijah goes there, Paul the Apostle goes there. It's a beautiful thing. A lot of study could be done on that. It's a beautiful thought anyway. But he goes down there to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. And what's interesting is he goes down there, and I said all that not to commend him, but he goes there out of surely that's where I should be, is the mountain of God. But he goes there, and the Lord comes to him and says, Elijah, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? It reminds me of another man, like many men in the Bible, that God questions. First thing you got to remember, when God questions a man, it's not like he's lacking information, right? It's not like God's for example, Adam and Eve in the garden. And he goes to Adam and says, Adam, where are you? It's not like I can't find out where you are. I'm looking and you're so hard to find. You little rascal. No. Where are you at? That's the question that Adam needs to hear. Where am I at? Where am I right now? Elijah, where are you? What are you doing here? What are you doing here, Elijah? Now, what's interesting about that is Elijah's response is, I've been very busy, zealous for the Lord, the children of Israel have forsaken. He's going to say the same thing in a moment. I want you to just take note of this. He has this little thing that he has kind of preloaded. And then the last thing he says, which is so devastating, God will correct this in a minute, but he doesn't yet. He says, I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. Lord, I'm the last prophet you got, and she wants to take my life. You're about to be a non-profit organization, right? It's going to if I die, it's over. You're going to be out of business, Lord, right? It's amazing. But that's where he's at mentally, right? Lord, I'm the last one. And here's the thing. I'm the last one. She wants to kill me, so I pray that you take my life. Why don't you just go hang out with her and let her kill you? Which means we do this kind of nonsense to each other and to God himself. We say things we don't mean. Why do we do that? It's so confusing. Oh, I just want to die. Then why don't you go hang out with a woman that wants to kill you? That'd be a way to go, isn't it? If you're looking to die, just go hang out with a lady with a knife that wants to kill you. Because you don't want to die. You don't really want to die because you wouldn't be as far away from her as possible. Right? That's just obvious. But he offered the olive branch. Elijah, what are you doing here? Lord, I've been zealous and the people and this and that and I'm the only one left and all this jargon. He was asking for a genuine conversation to actually deal with him. But time out before we move on. It's a quote I've said before. I say it again tonight. Look at Elijah. He's acting like a clown. Well, like most of us sometimes, right? But God's best men are men at best. And that's so, oh yeah, wow, yeah. God's best men are men at best. That means no matter who we idolize and who we think are so amazing. I always love to do this. Close your eyes and picture the perfect Christian person, man or woman. And you're like, I just so idealize them and I think they're amazing and they're flawless next to God. Yeah. The only reason we think like that about people is because we don't know them well enough. That's it. You went and spent time with them, you'd realize, oh, they're just a person like you and me. We're just removed from them. We don't fully know them all the way. That's all they are. God's best men are men at best. And Elijah is a man. And he failed. And he made dumb decisions. And he said stupid things. But so do we all. So do we all. What's amazing is God doesn't write him off, which sometimes we do if we're not careful. Oh, made a mistake? I'm done with you. No. God's going to work with him. He's not like, you've made one mistake, it's over, right? And that's another thing like with parenting, friends. It's just like the same thing with people or with each other. It's so important. We've got to be careful like with parenting. We only notice sometimes the negative thing in our children or grandchildren, right? Why are you doing this? Don't do that. Pick this up. And it's always the negative thing. But when they do something right, you don't take the time to point that out. It's detrimental, isn't it? We don't say, good job in doing that. I'm so thankful. You're being proactive. You're thinking ahead now. I like the way that we often are very quick to dish out all of the we love to point out the problems, all the flaws, all the issues. So slow to give out the compliments, right? And another thing is, again, just think about this, friends. Whether it's with each other or the Lord or yourself, whatever it is, listen, especially when you're discouraged with something and you're like, look at the stupid thing that I did. Look at that stupid thing that I said. I can't believe I would do this or I can't believe I would say that. If that's you, if you've done that more recently, listen. What about all the other great things you've done? What about all the other great things that person has done, right? Listen, here's what I mean. If you're going to criticize someone, if you really are, your blood's boiling, you want to rip their face off, just stop and think for a second. Is that the only measurement of who they are? Is this our only measurement of Elijah right now? A failure? An idiot? A fool? No. That's not God's measurement. But what I'm saying is, guys, we do that with ourselves. We do it with other people. We measure the person based on the one flaw. Time out, zoom out, and look at all of the other amazing things that we do, right? Okay, yeah, you said a boneheaded thing. Yeah, you made a stupid decision. But that's not the sum total of who you are. Elijah is not the sum total of this stupid moment in his life. But it is a stupid moment in his life. That's the thing. So verse 11. Then God said, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountain and broke the rocks into pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. It's so reminiscent of Moses, isn't it? Moses, I'm going to stuff you in the rock, pass by and take my hand off and show you my glory. I want you to come out, stand before it. And he goes by. The wind tore the mountain and broke rocks in pieces. Think about how powerful that would have been. The wind just, and rocks are crumbling and the mountain's shaking. And Elijah's like, ah! Could you imagine how that would rock your world? I mean, it's easy to read it in a cool environment like this tonight, right? Like, wow, that's interesting. It'd be a whole nother thing. You're hanging on like, this is incredible. And like, the amazing connotation or note is the Lord was not in the wind. Okay, so like, what was that all about, right? After the wind, an earthquake. So that'd be wild, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. So what's that all about? And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. Just imagine those few moments of windstorm and the wind calms down, you're like, whoa, that was crazy. And a second later, earthquake, hanging on for dear life, fire, like all of the crazy, scary things. Only to realize I didn't get anything from that other than that was terrifying. And then, after the fire in verse 12, a still small voice. This is how God's going to speak to him. The still small voice. And so in verse 13, it was when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And suddenly a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Can I just point out that God doesn't give us another series of questions or move us on to something when we haven't done the last thing that he's asked us to do the business with him that he wants us to do. God's like, we still got unattended business here. What are you doing here, Elijah? And in verse 14, he said, he must have thought this was so good, like hook, line, and sinker, obviously, because he's not going to change up what he said. I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel has forsaken your covenants and torn down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. That is exactly what he just said, isn't it? You mean to tell me, Elijah, after all of that, after the smoke and fire and earthquake and wind, you're going to give him the lame, stupid thing you said before? I don't even want to ask you to raise your hand, but I'm raising mine. Anyone ever done something like that before? Yeah, thank you. A few of us like, I don't even care, I'm raising it. Yeah, yep. The Lord is like looking for a genuine conversation. We need to do business with your heart and your attitude. Where are you at right now? And he's like, I'll tell you what's going on. It's so much like the man at the pool of Bethesda. It's the same idea. It's the same thing. We can relate to that as well. First of all, the Lord Jesus goes to a man and says, do you want to be made well? Which is like mind-blowing. That's like almost ignorant, isn't it? Who goes to a crippled person and says, you want to be made well? It's like, you're a jerk, right? Do I want to be made? No, I've actually always dreamed of living like this the rest of my life. I was hoping no one would ever disturb that possibility. No, you would never expect a crippled person to say that. But yet, that question is so authentic, it's unbelievable. Do you want to be made well? And do you know what the man says? He doesn't respond with anything related to that. Well, you see, here's the thing. I got some issues. This guy, I'm always trying to hire him, but he won't push me in the pool, but everyone else gets in the pool before I do. The question was, do you want to be made well? But if we're not careful, the truth is we don't want to be made well. I kind of like my mess, right? It's kind of like a baby in its diaper. They kind of like the stink and the warmth and the whole thing. It's like, ooh, it's kind of nice. But if you sit in it long enough, you get a rash, folks, right? And that's the thing. It's kind of comfortable and familiar, and you like it, and it's a little warm and all this. And listen, do you want to live like this? And you would think, well, no, man, I don't want that. I don't want to live like this. But yet, yeah. Do you want to change? Where are you at? What's going on? And it's always this little mantra, this little thing, your little spiel. I'm the only one. Look at what's going on in the world today. Elijah, remember what God asked him. Let's remember this. What are you doing here? That is not answering that question at all. What are you doing here? Well, Lord, I'm a little ticked off. So I've strolled myself down here to let a little steam out of the engine, if you will, okay? Little steam out of the Instapot for a moment. I need to take the pressure out. He doesn't tell him that. We all know, we're not stupid. We know that's what he's doing there, right? You think God knows what he's doing there? Elijah, what are you doing here? Well, let me tell you where things are at in Israel. Like God's like, oh good, get his notebook out. Whew. Where are things at, Elijah? I need to figure this. No, where are you at? I don't care about where Israel's at. Where are you at? What are you doing? And he loves his little mantra, man. He likes that little mantra. He thinks it's like, he's got him. He's like, Lord, here's the deal. But the response from God is so fitting for us to hear tonight. The Lord said to him, because obviously he's not going to level with God, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. You're going all the way up north, buddy, because that's where I want you. And when you arrive, you're going to anoint Hazael as king over Syria. That's weird. Usually they anoint kings of Israel. You're going to anoint Hazael king over Syria. And in verse 16, you shall also anoint the son of Nemish as king over Israel, Jehu that is. And Elijah, the son of Sheraphat of Abel Maholah, you shall anoint as prophet in your place. And it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu, will kill. And whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. Yet I have reserved, this is so key, I have reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. Good reminder, you're not alone. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's start with this. Oh man, I wish I didn't have to say this, but I know it's true, not only from the Bible, but from personal experience, baby. Oh, I know it way too well, man. I can think of some of the most raunchy, tired, exhausted moments of my spiritual life. I can barely pick myself up off the ground. And I look up and say, Lord, I can't go another mile. And he's like, shut up and work harder. And I'm like, well, certainly that was the devil. There's no way the Lord's talking to me like that, okay? Because I'm tired right now. I'm exhausted right now. But can I be serious and level with like, oh, Lord, I'm going through so much. And he's like, quit your jabbering and get to work. And I know that I'm not the first person that's ever heard that. When you read about Elijah, Lord, I'm the only one, and I'm going through so much right now. And stop talking. Go all the way in the opposite direction that you've been going and get to work. You're going to anoint this guy and that guy and that guy, because that's your job, bud. That's your job, dude. You anoint people. You work for me, so get to work. It's like, yeah, but I'm the only one left. No, you're not. Because I have 7,000 people that will replace you in a second, bro. 7,000. Now, work harder? Well, that's staggering because I'm tired. I can barely scrape myself off the floor. Work harder, man. But also, I have the 7,000 more. Listen, this is for every one of us to hear. So good for us to hear. So good to remember this. We are all replaceable. We're all replaceable, and we're not that awesome, and God doesn't need us at all. We are privileged to serve Him and do anything for Him, but He does not need any one of us. His work will go on without me, without any of you, any day of the week. He can do way more with way less than what we offer Him. And when we sit there and say, Lord, if you don't think about what you're about to lose here, and He's like, oh no. Seriously, there have been times I've said, Lord, and I'm joking at times, and times I've been serious, like, Lord, if you don't come through with this, I'm done. What do you think about that? And He's like, try it. And I'm like, it's kind of scary. I don't want to now. You made me all nervous, man. That's crazy. Like, Lord, you're going to lose me in ministry. And He's like, I don't care at all. You don't scare me, Greg. scare me with your I'm going to be done. You know how hard this is? And he's like, yeah, go. Well, you can either get back to work or I can stop using you, but you're allowed to do this if you want. Okay, I guess I'll keep going. Because I got 7,000 more people. We think we're seriously not replaceable? We do that on job sites and work environments, don't we? I have been working here for so long. No one can replace me. Like, watch them try to fire me and look what they're going to be finding themselves into a mess. Anyone ever done that before? No, you don't have to raise your hand. It's so true, though, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, they would fire me, but they know what they'd be losing. And they're like, I can't wait to get rid of that person. We don't even know what they're thinking on the other end. They're like, man, they're so set in their ways. They've been here for so long. They never do anything different, and we just need someone new in the place. And you're sitting there saying, no, man, I'm irreplaceable. God's like, no. Buddy, there's 7,000 more of you, Elijah. I just used you because you were there and available that day. So let's not be thinking of yourself too high and mighty. I got 7,000 more men. Get back to work. And not only that, double time, triple time. You're going to be moving and you're going to be grooving. And the cool thing is, as I read this anoint piece tonight, I was just reminded of the Great Awakening with George Whitefield. And I was so blessed to be reminded of a fact that I had long forgotten. It's that George Whitefield rubbed shoulders with John and Charles Wesley. All three of those men in their own right radically rocked the world that they ministered in. The Wesley brothers and the hymns and the Methodist church that was birthed, and I mean, it's like, whoa. But to think George Whitefield and John Wesley and Charles Wesley, the Lord had them like rubbing shoulders with each other. They weren't just like great men of God that were on the earth at the same time, but the Lord like brought them together and they were buds. They were friends. And that tells me God always has his men and women. Always. Always. So when we say, oh Lord, I'm the only one, he's like, no, you're not. Got a lot more people. Now, as we finish the chapter, this is such a good prescription for a struggling, doubt-filled, discouraged minister. I've been able to share this lesson with pastors before at a pastor's conference. With the opportunity that I had, I shared this principle with them. Because a lot of them were older and seasoned pastors. Listen to this. Verse 19. So he departed from there, and he found Elisha, the son of Saraphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12th. And then Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle on him. You can see that this is not excited. He's not like, hey, will you please come with me? Throws his mantle on him, and he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, please let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I'll follow you. And he said to him, yeah, go back and whatever I've done to you. Like, I don't care. Go ahead. Verse 21, so Elijah turned back from him, took a yoke of oxen, slaughtered them, boiled their flesh, using the oxen's equipment, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and followed Elijah and became his servants. That's a lot like the old story. Have you ever heard that story of like, I forget the exact storyline, but they're going to go to this island on these boats, and they're going to take the island. When they get to the island, the captain burns all the boats. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like, the only way forward is victory. We're not getting on the boats. We're not leaving. We're going to take this island. That's the only way we're moving forward. That's when you know someone's serious, when they burn the boats, right? Do you think that he's serious when he's going to follow Elijah, when he takes all of his oxen and slaughters them? Very serious. But here is the principle. Here's the thing. For the tired, discouraged leader, minister, person in that role, I would advise, and I say this to myself, you might need a young protege. You might need someone to pour into, right? That's very much God's design. You don't just get older and full of wisdom so that you can be set on a shelf somewhere and displayed as an awesome person. You get older and full of wisdom so you can pour that into someone younger that has many decades left of life, more than you and I, right? And often for a tired, discouraged servant of God, we start to think like, we got to resources. We got to save resources. We got to tuck everything away. We got to 401k. We got to be careful. We got to store it all away safely. And I'm talking spiritually, our investments. But God's like, no, you go and find someone younger and pour into them. You invest into them. Give to them. Share your life with them, right? And it is remarkable. Elijah doesn't even want to do it, though. It's not like he's like, oh, this will be really good. He's like reluctant about it. Yeah, like take my mantle. The mantle's a big deal, man. The mantle is saying, you're going to take my ministry someday. That's like figuratively giving him the keys. It's like he goes and throws the keys to him, and he's like, whoa. Like this kid can't even take it all in. He's like, holy smokes. Elijah just gave me the keys to his ministry. And he's like, can I say goodbye to my mom and dad? And he's like, whatever, kid. And he walks away. He's like, wait. He just, And he starts killing animals and feeding people. He's like, Mom, Dad, I love you. I got to go. But there's so many cool things about Elijah that I need to take just a few minutes and we'll be done. Listen. Notice with me the kind of man that Elijah was. Ooh. Notice he was not playing video games on his couch. I don't even know, Donkey Kong or whatever he's playing, and just getting, oh yeah. And he throws the mantle on his lap. No. He is working in the field. And not only is he working, he is working 12 yoke of oxen. We would say in today's society, this is a big rig, right? It's a big rig. He's working hard. He's got beasts of burden. He's like rocking these things. Which also implies, even the kid loves that one. Listen. Even the fact that he has that many oxen, it tells us that he is from a wealthy family, right? The family, to be able to afford such a thing, has the resource for him to work with that kind of oxen. Not only that, but he is out there working. He doesn't have a hired servant out there. He himself is doing the work. And I guess that's the first thing I want to point out with you, and this is a very important principle for all of us. God calls workers. That's what he does. God calls workers. When God has in mind someone to take Elijah's job, he has in mind, I know this is so blatantly obvious, it's painful. He has in mind someone that's already doing hard work. Give you an example. All too often this happens in churches. You ready? We want someone to be more devoted to God. We want them to serve God or be more involved at church or what have you. And so what do? Well, they're not doing much now, but maybe we'll give them a position and then they'll do something. It happens all the time. Yeah, that guy, he barely does this and does that. We're going to give him a title. And then that way he'll just rocket into the next atmosphere. No. All too often that happens, and that person is an utter disappointment because they're not doing anything. In fact, the way a pastor once said it, God will want you full-time when he wants more of what you're already doing part-time. That's a good standard. For who is God calling into ministry? It's the people that are already doing the work. The people that stand around and say, what needs to be done? What's going on? And nothing ever happens? Well, just think about it, friends. That's exactly it. Elijah is a worker. He is getting it done. 12 yoke of oxen, and so God calls him, grabs him, and says, I want you to take over, man. Now, the last thing I'll put my finger on is this. Please let me kiss my father and my mother. Now, maybe some of you already thought about this verse in the New Testament, right? The Lord and his story of the man that God calls, or the Lord calls, and then he says, well, wait, let me first go bury my father. And the Lord's like, no, if you don't follow me, you're not worthy. But that's different. See, what that man was saying is, he says, let me go bury my father. What he's saying is, I'm going to wait at home until my father dies. See, my dad's older, he's not doing well, and he could die at any time. Well, he could live 10 or 15 more years. And he says, Lord, I will follow you once my father dies. That is not what Elisha just said. Elisha just said, let me go kiss my parents goodbye. Totally different. That's not saying, hey, I'm going to hang around, get the retire. Hey, Elijah, whoa, think about it. Think. If we play the cards right, check it out. I work for Dad for like another 25, 30 years. The amount of money that I will have at that point will be astronomical. The ministry that we will be able to do, dude, is awesome. So just give it a couple of decades and I am going to show up and it's going to be awesome. Nope. That kid goes and grabs those oxen and slaughters them, takes all of his investments, divides it up and gives it away and says, let's go, Elijah. Let's do it. You see the difference? Let me go first bury my father. No. I don't care about inheritance. I don't care about saving up for the future. I'm going to follow you right now. Kill these oxen and let's do this thing. And Elisha is going to be the best thing that ever happened to Elijah, ever. I just was reminded of this moment. After living with my pastor for a year, who's become my father, Aaron, right? I said to him, like, thank you so much for everything. And I still say this all the time. Thank you so much for what you taught me. It's so awesome. And he's like, no, Greg, thank you. I've learned more from you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. You don't learn anything from me. I've taught you nothing. Although, I did teach them that they needed a microwave in their house. It's true. They didn't own a microwave. I said, how are you going to make popcorn? They're like, on a stove. I was like, that's weird. So they bought a microwave. I did teach him that for sure. But I was like, what? He said, you have taught me more than I've learned. I'm like, what? I get it now. I get it. Elisha was exactly what Elijah needed. His crusty old prophet heart, right? I'm the only one left. He's like, hold on, bud. Okay, if that is a fact that remains to be true, which it's not, maybe it's time to start working on your replacement. But us older folk don't like to do that kind of thing, do we? We get a little possessive about what we've done and what we've accomplished. We're not about to hand it off to some young idiot, after all. But that's exactly what God wants him to do. Oh, Elijah, the best thing that'll happen to you is Elisha. And truly, Elisha will get what's a double portion of the spirit that Elijah had. Like, literally twice as many miracles are recorded in Elisha's life. It's amazing. But Elijah, I'm the only one left. Well, Elijah, if that's your mindset and you're going to go to the grave with that mindset, you're going to go to the grave and you'll be the last one. Or I'm going to call you to train somebody else up and they're going to take your place. That's not always easy to do. Not always easy to do. I'm like an accountant in one area, and that's life. That's one area. I always think about the end all the time. Like, it's weird. So February, let me explain how my brain works, and then we're going to be done, okay? February of next year will mark 10 years that my wife and I have been here. Whoa. Well, thank you. That is a long time, actually. I'm so old I can't clap now. No. 10 years, man. I'm like, wow, I was 27, I'm 37. Whoa, that's going to be crazy, right? 10 years. And then I say to myself, what do I have, like 3 or 4 of those left in the church? Is that what I can offer you guys? Like 3 of them, well, I'm kind of a weird guy, so maybe like 2.5, you know what I mean? And then after you're like, So I think to myself, I've done one of those. I got like 3, 4 tops left. That's how I'm accounting all the time. But I do know this. It's really hard as you get toward the end of that 3 or 4 left kind of moment. You look back and you're like, it's someone else. It's their time. It's their opportunity, right? I got to raise somebody else up. I have seen over and over and over again that is so hard for people to do. But again, because my pastor taught me so many things, one of the things he taught me early on that I did not even understand, but now I understand it a little bit, you are only a success when you make other people successful. It's not about what you can do in your life. It's what you can enable and empower other people to do in their lives. That's so important. So we don't get possessive about the stuff that we're doing. So Elisha is the best thing that'll happen to Elijah.